On Oklahoma wildfires.
Hi guys, I am going to share my desktop with you. And if you have questions along the way, feel free to let me know. Okay, so here we go. Before we get started, I just want to give you guys some background about me so you can understand my point of view and where I'm coming from. I am an Oklahoma girl through and through. I attended Oklahoma State University and got my degree in agricultural leadership. After I graduated, I was a full-time 4-H educator in Pottawatomie County. And then I left Cooperative Extension and went to Cook Communications, where I was a travel blogger for a tourism region in Oklahoma. And that is 13 counties in South Central Oklahoma. And that is where I really got the back end knowledge of social media and crisis communication. When I was in Extension, I started my master's degree and I was studying digital media and cooperative extension. I finished that up in May of 2015, and at that time, the Division of Agriculture created this new position, and it was like my two jobs had a baby. It was like the extension job and the social media manager job at Cook merged together and became one. And I have been with the Division of Agriculture at Oklahoma State since June of 2015. And so today during this webinar for you, I think there's really three key takeaways, and that would be how to use social media to deliver your key message, action steps for you to take during a crisis, and ideas to help you elevate your message during this time. Okay, so the background, this has happened in the past 2 or 3 years here in Oklahoma, and it's put our team here in Ag Communication Services kind of our resources to the test. So in April 2018, more than 348,000 acres burned across Oklahoma, causing catastrophic losses to livestock, pasture, hay, fences, home, and facilities. And it started for us the morning of April 13th. Our office received a call informing us that 3 counties in western Oklahoma were engulfed by a wildfire. The team here in Agricultural Communication Services created a wildfire crisis communications team. My supervisor and unit director, Lyndall Stout, assembled a team that she thought would work together during this crisis time. It was kind of all hands on deck. Our goal was to develop a strategy to support our cooperative extension colleagues in the counties affected, distribute timely information to farmers and ranchers affected, and elevate the message that agricultural supplies were desperately needed. And then here are the tools that during this time that I utilized. And so DASNR, we were pumping out messaging on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And I also was able to be an admin on the Woodward County Extension Facebook page. And I, during this time, took over all of the monitoring and posting for them. And then me being an admin, we were able to pull analytics on it, more to that later. And then the other thing that was really important before we moved forward was to prepare employees. That included, leadership, and then our people out in the counties, that everyone was on the same page. Talking points are a huge help for this. Okay, so here's kind of what happened with us and kind of how we've elevated our response in the past 2 years. This past year, I really feel like we learned from that first year of things that didn't go so well, and we kind of really knew what we needed to do in order to be effective. And so, like I said, Lyndall assembled the crisis communication team, and during that initial meeting, we brainstormed, okay, what press releases do we need? And then what video, photo, graphic design elements, and web support is needed during this time. And then I don't know if this is a thing in other states or not. We have this fact sheet database that extension experts write. And so we were like, okay, what fact sheets are at hand that meet this topic of material? And then media relations, we were coordinating TV, radio, and other interviews for the extension educators in the 3-county area. And then following up once they were published to push them out on social. And then what support do the counties need? And this is something that was a little different than the year before. We did, I don't want to say took over, but kind of, we were able to monitor and publish the same content that we were pushing out on DASNR's state agency pages. So we were, able to really elevate the message to make sure that voice tone was consistent. The photo needs were, the correct size and branded correctly, and all of that kind of stuff that, as social media experts, that's just kind of in our wheelhouse, and we can't expect our extension educators in the time of crisis to be maintaining that level of professionalism and expertise. So honestly, at the end of the day, when we said, hey, we would love to help with your social media during this time, honestly, it was a huge sigh of relief for them. Okay, so when you have a crisis, here, to me, this is the to-do list that you should work through in this time. Okay, first and foremost, this needs to be done as soon as possible. The last thing you want to do is to come off insensitive during this crisis situation. And so you need to take down all of your scheduled posts. That is on every platform. We use Sprout Social to manage our social media here in DASNR. And so it was really easy for me to say, okay, we're pushing pause. So I just copied and pasted everything that was scheduled so I didn't lose that great content. But we didn't have, hey, come to the canning workshop in, Osage County while, half the state's on fire. So take down all of your scheduled posts. I know that seems really silly to even say, but, it's important. Pause all of your promotions and ads. So if you have any Facebook ads, Twitter ads, Instagram ads, if you're doing any Google keywords, I would just take a hard look at where your ad spend is at that time and push pause or take down all of them until you go back to your normal posting schedule. And then set up Google Alerts. And so if you know the county educators that are going to be speaking to the crisis at hand or the wildfire name or any of that type of information that you think would warrant you could go ahead and set up your Google Alerts. Here at Oklahoma State and DASNR, we have the availability to share OSU's media monitoring report software. And so when this crisis was happening, I reached out to OSU Communications and said, hey, I need to add a few keywords to the media monitoring report. And so that way, if something showed up in Earn Media, I was able and alerted via email that next day, and I could comb through it and see, okay, this is where we've been published, this TV station did X, Y, Z, and just helping us coordinate some of that stuff, because it gets a little hairy sometimes. And then set up listening streams, and this is another benefit of having a social media management tool on Sprout, especially on Twitter. I feel like it's easier to listen. We have the ability to say, I want this keyword, so like hashtag OKFire in a 100-mile radius or 500-mile radius of this zip code or city state. And so just to see what is being talked about, what's going on, that listening in those different social ecosystems is really important. Then identify the hashtag if there is one. In this case, last year, OKFire was the main one, but then we also had the 3 different fires also had their own hashtag. And so any messaging that we had going out, we were incorporating those hashtags on Twitter to help insert ourselves into those conversations. Oh, sorry. And then this is really important as well. Think about your crisis communication, giving it priority on your website. And so do you need a new landing page for all of your information and resources to be parked on during this time? Do you just need to reconfigure your homepage and add a link to a press release with your statement about the crisis? Or do you need to buy domains and have them redirect? And that was something that we have done in the past. I am not a web expert, and so that was, a team effort of working with our web team here on campus and having them help us get things situated. So, okay, amplify your message. And so, I think there are numerous ways to help elevate your content and get it in front of more eyeballs. And so I am lucky enough to have a nice working relationship with our main campus communications team. And so after I got out of the initial crisis communication meeting, I called their director and let them know what was going on and that we would be pumping out some information and I would need help from them. Either I would send them copy for them to copy and paste, or I would send them links to the post to either share or retweet. And there were a few different points during this 2-week period that we needed help from them. And so they were very responsive, and it didn't matter what time. They just knew, like when they got an email from me, there were action items to follow. Are there agricultural publications and reporters in your area? If so, can you send them a Twitter DM? Do you happen to have their phone number, or can you get a hold of their office via email? There are ways to help distribute your information in that avenue. TV stations. Last year, that was something Lindsay, my director, after we got out of that initial crisis meeting, she got on the phone and started calling TV stations because we knew Extension's role in this. And so we were letting them know, like, hey, we have B-roll, we have photographers on the ground. We will be coordinating the media interviews. Here are the experts. And that's another thing that we did that was really helpful, and not just for this, but for any time I get a question on social media that I'm not aware of the answer to. We created this specialist inventory. And so anyone with an extension appointment, we have their name, their email, their phone number, and then what area of expertise they're in. And so if we have like an NPR reporter wanting to talk to someone about how to deal with all these dead animals, well, we can point them in the direction of someone that has written a fact sheet and has, an expert in that area that can provide them information. Radio stations, that was one of the first things I did via email, was reached out to our local radio stations that we have a pretty good working relationship, saying, hey, if you need any interviews during this time, here are the resources and areas of expertise that we have available. Please let me know if you would like to coordinate these interviews for you. And then influencers in your area. So you guys know who's interacting and sharing with your stuff on a regular basis. And you can even call friends, family, shoot them a text and say, hey, this is happening. Would you mind sharing this on Facebook or retweeting this on Twitter? There's nothing wrong with doing that. The more eyeballs you can get out on your posts, the better. And then monitor Facebook groups. So this is something that got a little hairy last year. And so it may or may not apply to you. But this is very wildfire specific. There are numerous wildfire groups that are on Facebook, and they're out there trying to coordinate hay deliveries and all of the things that Cooperative Extension was doing. And so I requested to join some of these groups. Some were private, some were not. and I started pumping out all of our posts into these groups so that they were seeing our information as well. And then I think one thing that might get overlooked is that internal communications piece. And so, you know, I know when something happens, it's immediate, you're putting out that fire and you're just pedal to the metal, but don't forget to inform your internal audience as well. And whether that's an email going out or, you know, the phone tree to the department heads and they disseminate information, or county directors or what have you, it's just nice to have everyone on the same page. And then, of course, metrics matter. You can provide a daily summary at the beginning of each day. So that's something I did with Lindell, because they were meeting, like department heads were meeting every day during this time in the morning to regroup, saying, okay, what's going on? What's the need today? And so she was able to take the number like, hey, so far we've reached X amount of people on social media during this time. After you go back to your normal posting schedule, after the crisis has kind of calmed down a little bit, you can provide a comprehensive report. Just make sure to include all of your platforms, and then take screenshots as you go. If you see something that's really impactful, that someone's leaving a comment, or there's someone shared something with a great comment of their own, take a screenshot of it, make a folder on your desktop, and just put those little nuggets away. And as you're building your report, you can add some of those in there as well. And then learn from your experience. Take time to list out content that performed well and content that didn't do so hot. I said flopped instead of fell. It just sounds a little nicer. Okay. And so I'm just showing you some hard data. I have all of the platforms pulled up back to this time where we can kind of walk through posts, and I can show you what we've done in the past. So this is a simplified version of what I prepared after the wildfire was over. It gives my big totals, my reach, impressions, link clicks. Then I have it broken down by platform. I've got Dazzner, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And then during that time, we also had access to the Woodward County Facebook page. So I was taking note of their analytics as well during that time. Okay, so can you guys see the Twitter now? Is that big enough? I can't tell. Okay. So I went back and we started pumping out information on April 13th. So this was our first tweet, and I can just kind of run up and show you guys. So we've got the hashtag. All of our photos are branded with this nice little overlay. And so I'm just pumped like a link machine during this time, letting people know where to go for information, what they should be looking for. This was something I tried last year that was pretty successful, and I know it sounds like really shamelessly plug, but I put the little alarm emojis up there and said, please retweet. I mean, I gave people a call to action, and that got 108 retweets, which is not too shabby. So don't be afraid to be bold with your messaging. So this was a really big thing. We've just really, really needed hay. That was our #1 need for producers, because we had, you know, what cattle were alive, they had no food. And so that was really imperative. And Cooperative Extension had these 3 numbers in the county offices, and we were coordinating all agricultural donations. So that was like milk replacer, it was fencing supplies, it was some clothing in some instances, and most importantly, hay. And so, as you can see, we're just pumping out information. During that time, our news and media team, we had 14 press releases about wildfire, with just like updates, things that were needed, the recovery aspect. And then anytime we had something from a news station, we made sure to give them credit. And so this is kind of what Twitter is looking like. As you can see, it's a lot of link previews, it's a lot of news stories, it's a lot of repurposing the same information, just with different news stories. And so for almost 2 weeks solid, this is all we were talking about. We pulled all of our content back, all of our campaigns. We had a major running campaign that correlated with our legislative session that we literally had to put the brakes on and stop talking about and pause all money behind. And so we were just talking about these fires and the recovery effort. Last year we had quite a few, like we had 25 4-H families that lost homes during that time. And so our Oklahoma 4-H Foundation set up a scholarship fund. And so that was something that was a unique marketing opportunity for us. And so, we were reaching out to other 4-H Foundations directors, asking them to share the message on their social media. I was reaching out to National 4-H Council, asking them to help us as well. And so, and this is also fun. We were getting hay from all over the country, and, some parts of the country are under quarantine due to fire ants. And so, making sure we were getting that information out to the public was really important as well. Okay, so this is kind of rounding out Twitter. We had one Facebook post during that time. So it was the hay, if you're interested in donating hay, with the 3 numbers to call. Felt like that sufficed enough for Instagram. Oh no. Oh, okay. So Facebook, this was our first post on Facebook, that April 13th. And it's going to look pretty similar to Twitter. And yeah, those photos are just so impactful and just, and we're sharing this hard information, but it was needed. And, oh yeah, Facebook Lives. During that time, we had 2 Facebook Lives. We were doing one, and that is the ag educator in that county who was kind of, for better or for worse, a spokeswoman of this issue. And we were just saying, like, here's what's going on. Here are fact sheets that farmers and ranchers in this area might find beneficial. And then here are the hay hotline numbers if you're interested in donating. And then one thing to remember, anytime you post a video, even if it is a Facebook Live, that it needs to be accompanied with closed captioning. And so I say, as long as you have your closed captioning up within 12 to 24 hours, you're showing that good faith effort. But I mean, I think if I remember right, this Facebook Live was like almost 30 minutes. And so that was a lot of captioning. And then I'll just kind of run you guys back up through it. And I wasn't organically targeting any of these posts. I was just keeping this open to all of our normal audience. And this was another Facebook Live. We did a Q&A with an animal scientist and then the extension waste management specialist to talk about, unfortunately, disposing these livestock carcasses, disaster loss related tax rules, disaster assistance, again, pushing out those 3 hay hotline numbers, and then, providing that closed captioning as well. And so it's just kind of the same information. One thing I did want to show you guys, we had a small budget during this time. I think it was like $300 that I was able to put behind some promoted posts, and I'll show you, this is what they looked like on the regular desktop news feed. So I had 3 during this time, one that started on the 19th, one that started on the 20th, and another that started on the 20th, that were all targeted very differently. And so this one was the press release with the 3 phone numbers again. Let me see more. I'm sorry. With a call to action for agricultural supplies that were needed during this time. And so if you guys are interested, I can show you kind of what we were looking at. So I was targeting, states that were near us that were interested in cattle feeding, farm, ranch, that also liked either cooperative extension, hay, or agriculture. And so I was doing Facebook feeds, both mobile and desktop. And so, by doing that, we were able to get our content in front of more eyeballs that we may or may not have without any money. And so as you can see, it got a lot of reactions and 165 shares. And then this next post, this was really important. Cooperative Extension paired up with the USDA and Farm Services to host a meeting for producers that were impacted during this time. And so that one, the targeting looked a little different. And so I was looking strategically at the counties affected, and then looking at cities and towns doing like a 50-mile radius that were interested in agriculture. Now, you're going to say that's pretty general, but in hopes that we would get in front of the right people that were living in that location and hopefully interested in agriculture. And maybe if they weren't directly impacted, they were tagging someone or sharing it with someone who needed to attend that meeting. And that meeting was standing room only. People were standing outside. There were way more people than what the facility was, ready and available to host for, which, it is what it is. They were able to accommodate and get everyone the information they needed. So like I told you earlier, this one was a little different. With my targeting, I got to be a little more adventurous. And so I took the approach of everyone that was living in the United States who was interested in 4-H. And so this one, it went gangbusters. It had, look at that, 1,000 plus shares, 1,000 plus reactions and comments. And during that time, we were able to raise quite a significant amount of money. I think this went out on a Friday, and over the weekend, we just continued raising money from all over the country. And I'm not going to say it was all due to this like little Facebook ad, but I think it had a lot to do with it. And so, I know that we always don't have a budget to do these type of things, but I went to my supervisor, Lyndall, and then she went to the higher ups and said, hey, is there any way we can have a budget to help pump out some of this information? And $300 is not a lot, but it can go a long way when you're being really strategic with your ad sets on Facebook on the back end. So I just kind of wanted to share some of that information with you to kind of show you what we've been able to do this past year, and kind of how we've elevated our message and all of that fun stuff. Do you guys have any questions for me during this time? Is there anything I can help you with or explain more? Yes.
Lindsay, this is Mike Brooklyn-Reese in Nebraska. How are you doing?
I'm so good. How are you, sir?
Good. So, as you may know, we've been dealing with flooding here in Nebraska as of late. And so thank you for having this topic. It's super timely for us. And thank you for sharing your information, your experience going through this. One question I had is, you mentioned near the beginning, you paused kind of all your other kind of efforts.
Yes.
How long did you kind of pause on that? Because I know one thing we think about here is, while it does affect a certain percentage of your clientele. As we've noticed, kind of after a week or 2 weeks goes on, the rest of the world has kind of moved on.
Yes.
And so how have you balanced that with your wildfire communication and then kind of moving on to what other extensions doing or what the rest of the university is doing? How have you managed that?
It's really hard. And it kind of is I don't want to say a personal call, but for me, one of the things that I've really learned is important is listening to these social ecosystems. And so if you're following a lot of your extension pages or your extension educators from your page, or personally, if you're friends with these people, see what is being said on social media. And like you said, it gets to a point where everyone's kind of going on with the rest of their life. People are still talking about it from time to time. Last year, it was 2 weeks solid that we were pumping out this information and shutting down everything else. And that was kind of due to, I think the main thing was seeing the fire percentage containment. And it went on forever. And we felt like if it still was not at, I don't remember the number directly, but we were seeing that, the news wasn't covering it as heavily. Our ag publications were starting to publish other content. I think we shifted more towards the recovery, and we're still sprinkling that kind of stuff in every now and then, but slowly started going back to our normal stuff. And so I think, having that conversation with whoever you need to, maybe bringing in a couple of people in your office, like your crisis communication team, and say, okay, let's look at some timelines. Let's see what our fans and followers are talking about right now. Is that all we see still, or are people starting to look for other content? And you're gonna feel icky. Like, I felt like I was gonna throw up for 3 days. I was like, I just don't know if people are ready for other content, but it was time. And then I'll say this to you guys, secondhand trauma is very real. And so if you are talking with people or you're directly affected, or, last year we had extension educators who lost homes. We had secretaries who lost homes. And so, by talking to these people, I don't want to say it's all I'm saying is if you feel like you need help, make sure to take care of your team and yourself during this time. After, it's okay if, one thing we were really talking about was that mental health aspect of it and counseling. And so, after dealing with this for 3 years now, after we kind of wrapped up, I definitely went and talked to someone because, you're seeing all of these things and it can get a little heavy. And so that's just one thing I want to say too. And I don't know if that is deemed okay to say or not, but I just think it's important to also consider yourself as well during all of this, because we're seeing a lot of different things. Oh, hey, I was able to find the question box. I see a question. Did that help at all?
Yes, that was great. Thank you.
Okay, it was a very long-winded answer, so I'm sorry. Sherry, sorry if I missed this early on. I didn't get on until a few minutes later, but how many people in today's from LSU were involved in this? Oh, I'm sorry, my phone's ringing. That's really... Okay, we sent that to voicemail, so we didn't have to listen to that. Okay, so Sherry had a question about how many people or entities from OSU were involved with this effort. And so we were pumping out content from the Division of Ag's social media. So that was Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And then we had 3 counties total affected, but 1 county had a social media presence. And that's why the 1 county was involved. The other 2, they just were using their personal social media during that time. And so that was kind of how that happened. And then looping in OSU Communications, the main campus platform, to help us elevate some of those bigger messaging. Also, did I have a list of tags or followers? Tagging on the fly. So I think the main thing that you can be doing in one of these instances is seeking out what hashtags people are using on Twitter. And then anytime that you're pumping out a press release that a TV station did or a newspaper did or an ag reporter in your area, is if they're on social media, making sure to tag them. And that's when Google Alerts really comes in handy, or that media monitoring report. Sherry, did that help? I hope so.
Yes, that was fine. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
I haven't been through a crisis communication, but I've been through some things that we plan to do in the future. And it's always, okay, well, I want to be sure to tag some people, some entities, some companies, in this. And it takes a long time sometimes to go look those up, whether you're already joint followers, or not, because you don't know specifically who they are versus somebody else with a really similar name, and you don't want to spend a lot of time writing that. So yes, that helps. Thank you.
And then I think one thing, and this is just for Twitter, but utilizing Twitter lists, if you want to build out a list for all of your TV stations, a list for all of the newspapers, which I know for your state takes a really long time, but it's something that could be helpful in these instances, or a list for ag publications and ag journalists. Right now, that is on my to-do list. I haven't even done that. The only list I have on DASNER's Twitter is for the academic departments. And so all of the academic departments here on campus that have social media, it pulls up their chronological timeline of tweets. And this is how I go in and monitor and favorite and interact with their accounts. But it is on my list within the next month to start building out more comprehensive lists on Twitter for those type of things, because it could be really helpful. There's a question: was there any conscious plan or schedule for daily time interval between social media posts and other information distributed, or did you push out the content as soon as it was available? That first initial announcement was soon as the press release was finalized and up on the OSU Communications platform. I would say most of the other things, I was a little more strategic with when it was going out, but some of it was, kind of county directed, like, hey, Lindsay, this needs posted. We have a meeting tomorrow and we need RSVPs or something. Sometimes stuff is just kind of out of your control. And so you push it live as directed. But one of the things that I really like about Sprout is whichever platform, I can go in and say, okay, today, what is my high time? And it gives, I guess I could show you guys that instead of just like talking about it, huh? That'd be helpful. Way to go, Lindsay. So Sprout, when you're going in to publish, you can say, okay, I'm wanting a message to go out on DASNER's Twitter. What is today's high time? And so, 9:25 is a little late, but it is a mega star time. And so this is kind of how I try to push out content strategically. So the higher the stars, the higher probability that people are online and will interact with it. It's a high time. And they acquired a company called Viral Post, and that's how they're pulling this information. And so it does the same thing for my other platforms as well. I can go in and say, okay, tomorrow, what are my high times? And it gives it ranked. So it's a really helpful little tool. Okay. Was there a review process by academics or others in communication that you were required to work through? If yes, how did that work? We did have a crisis communications team, and on that team, I guess I could tell you that. That'd be helpful, right? Lyndall, who is the unit director, myself, Dave Deacon, who is a TV producer for our ag TV show that goes on OETA. We have Todd, who is our staff photographer, Gail, who is a senior communication specialist. She is in charge of the fact sheet database. We had Trish, who is a communication specialist, Dawn and Sean, who are also communication specialists, and Torsten, who is our web developer. And so as far as pushing out content on social media, I did not have to get anyone's stamp of approval. Now, we've had other instances that have been really spicy and have required some finessing of communications from myself, my unit director, and then, legal. So it just depends on the true crisis at hand. And so at this one, it was fine for me to be the one pumping out the communications without any review, because truly I was taking what was in the press release and kind of just giving it a shorter form for people to click the press release and read more information. When you start involving people in the approval process, it can get a little hairy. And so if you are on a deadline, you can make sure to let them know that there's a sense of urgency. And, sometimes I have to pick up the phone and kind of be a bulldog and kind of let people know, like, hey, this is kind of an emergency and I need this as soon as possible. If you can't look at it in the next 2 hours, can you direct me to someone who can? And I feel forceful doing that, but in communications, we run pretty quickly. And so if there is something of that nature, it's okay to elevate the conversation or have your unit director do it on your behalf. Is there anything else I could help with or talk through? I think, one thing that would be nice for you guys to do is to go and brush up on your crisis communications plan. I'm guessing that all of you guys have some of those. And so it's a nice thing to bring up with your department as a whole, your communications unit, and just make sure that everyone is on the same page. Because, sometimes these things happen and it's like, ooh, what do we do? But we have a plan. I saw lots of tweets without images. Did they get more or less engagement with the ones with images? Twitter was the first one, huh? Oh no, I X'd out of that. I should never have left that page. And so anytime that we had a really great photo that I felt would invoke some kind of emotion, I would add it. I was just trying to sprinkle things in to diversify our content. And so there were a lot of link previews, unfortunately, because we were linking to other publications and such. There was very little video because most of the time we did not have the direct video to upload onto the platforms, or they exceeded the 2-minute and 20-second maximum that Twitter allows. And so, that bottle calf photo with talking about the orphan bottle calves got a lot of retweets. The one with the hey donation with just a simple image and the phone numbers got a lot of retweets. I would say the ones that were not linking directly to press releases as a link preview probably got more play on Twitter, but we were able to see like how many link clicks we were getting, and we know that people were consuming that content as well. They might have not just been engaging with it in the same as in retweeting it or whatnot. That's the other thing that's really fascinating. Let me see if I can find it. 1 second. Okay, so this is a Sprout report, and this is for Twitter during that time. So I pulled the April 13th through the 30th. And this just kind of shows you what's going on. So it gives you the impressions, engagement, and link clicks. And then it pulls by potential reach. Yep, that was the one I was talking about, the please retweet for Hey. This one was the second most popular, and that one was, it could have been a link preview, but I pulled it out and did a photo with a link to the press release. Sorry. And then I can't remember what this one was. Oh yeah, this was a link preview. Texas Farm Bureau did a story, just a call to action with the items that we needed. This next one was that orphan calf. Come on, does that not just like, give you all the feels? And then this next one was a link preview from News on 6, one of our Tulsa stations did a really nice story. So it's just kind of all over the board. I would say anytime you have a really beautiful photo or a photo that it tugs at your heartstrings or gives you some kind of strong feeling, or a video, I would say go ahead and find a way to make that content a priority. Yes. So what is funny is OSU has such a strong brand presence in our state, and I'm sure your land grant is the same way. People come here, they love it, they bleed whatever color it is for the rest of their life, like me, bleed orange through and through. Go Pokes. And so what's funny is, shares on Facebook are great. But if you can give that copy for them to directly copy, paste, upload the photo or video that you need, you're going to get way more eyeballs on that than if you ask them to share it. It sounds crazy, I know. However, if they want to retweet you, that is when we start to see the stuff just take off. If OSU retweets one of our messages, key messages, that's when it just starts to go like this. It goes popcorn. People are retweeting it like crazy. If they don't, we're going to see some retweets because, people are needing this information that's really important. It's the same thing. If you want to provide them the same copy that you're pumping out, and then anytime you can make their job easier and say, hey, here's the copy for Facebook, here's the copy for Twitter, here's the copy for Instagram. Oh, by the way, I've attached photos that are cropped for Facebook, the photo that's cropped correctly for Twitter and Instagram. You're literally making that communications person job that much easier, and they will probably be pretty thankful, and you will be in their good graces. And so the only thing is, anytime that we do that, it is harder to get analytics, because I don't know about you, but I am not an admin on the main OSU page. And so I don't have access to analytics unless I go after it and ask for it. And so it just kind of, you have to gauge that working relationship and do whatever you think is best for your messaging at that time. But yes, we get a lot of help from them, and I'm so grateful that they're a good partner to work with and help us during these times. So, hey there. Great question. The main accounts for our university, like most big publics, are focused on students, potential students, parents, and donors. We don't get a lot of amplification. So they decided that this is big enough for a broader audience. So this instance is very different. The 3 counties that were affected Cooperative Extension was ground zero for all ag donations and supplies. And it's been like that for the previous 2 years. And so we've gotten a lot of coverage showing the impact of the university and Cooperative Extension in those counties. It's like we have a presence in every county. And so we have had some state magazine publications and stories, and it's been a really interesting process. Now, the first year, OSU was kind of like, okay, sure. We got a little bit of help, but last year we saw a huge uptick. And I think that I should have brought that up, the copy I provided them. We were spinning it as cowboy family, like our thing is like cowboy family. And so branding it like the cowboy family, we need your help. There are 3 counties in Oklahoma that are in need of hay donations. I don't know how or why they deemed it very important, but we were blessed to have their support in that. And then when the larger news stations started enterprising their own stories and quoting OSU Extension professionals, they were using that content as well. And so, I don't know, it's really hard to get buy-in from your campus communications team sometime. And I think this is an ongoing issue. Kind of treat them like a journalist or like you're a PR person in general, and kind of try to have those conversations with them and, show them how Cooperative Extension is that, link. Because sometimes we have to play, like, for better or for worse, we have to educate people. Because sometimes people work on campus and they don't know what Cooperative Extension is, even though we're on a land grant institution. And so anytime you can make their job easier or show some partnership or be a help to them, I think is a feather in your cap and just helps you in these times. I wish I could provide more helpful takeaways to you. I'm sorry if that doesn't help you at all. But if you ever want to brainstorm or anything, feel free. I'll share this too. I'll put up my email. My email is lindsay.davidson10@okstate.edu. And then that is my office phone number if you ever want to give me a call. Sometimes I'm easier to get a hold of. On an ongoing basis, what kind of releases are you tweeting about? I will show you our Twitter account. So right now, I currently have pinned, even though it's not Wheat Harvest, we have this amazing GIF. We are lucky enough this year that the 2 Pistol Petes are Kasner students. And so we were able to schedule a photo shoot and video shoot and have our very own Pistol Pete in a wheat pasture. And we turned it into this lovely GIF. And I just think it is the cutest thing of all time. So I have it pinned. And then right now it's Kasner Week. And so we are providing, we're just kind of highlighting Kasner. And then last Friday, well, Thursday really, I had another crisis of sorts breakout. So Oklahoma is home to the world's largest junior livestock show. That is the Oklahoma Youth Expo. And during that time, there were numerous pigs, I'm talking like a lot of pigs, diagnosed with PED virus. And so OYE sent out an email about it and didn't do any social media crisis communication. The Department of Ag didn't do any crisis communication via social. And so when I was on Thursday morning, all I was seeing was family and friends posting about this. And I was like, well, this is weird. And so I went to my unit director, Lyndall, and said, hey, I think we need to do something about this PED. I think we need to generate some content. And so, funny enough, we whipped together this The More You Know, Learn About PED Virus And so I did like a series of tweets, which obviously my tweets didn't get a lot of engagement. And then on Friday morning, we worked and had a short video produced with some fact-based information with someone here on campus in the Vet Med lab. I want to show you guys this on Facebook because this is crisis, just a different topic. I feel like my life is one revolving crisis communication door anymore, for better or for worse. Let's go to Dazzler. I just want to show you this because this is wild. This wasn't a template or anything we had built, this did you know graphic, but it took off like wildfire. Here it is. Okay, so it's literally the same thing that we posted on Twitter, just in a larger digestible content, because obviously you have more character bandwidth to play with. But 315 shares, like that's wild. And we put no money behind it. That was sheerly organic. And so, you know, people were commenting and tagging people that they knew that were at OIE or sending it via message. We had like county extension pages sharing it, like FFA pages sharing it, and it continued to, that went out 3:45 on Thursday, and it was still getting shared yesterday morning. And we took that same video and posted it here, almost 2,000 views, which is crazy. And it's ironic because Facebook continually tells us that video is higher ranked in the algorithm than anything else, but the Did You Know post outperformed it, which I found highly interesting. So that's just another example of a little crisis communication for you guys. Is there anything else I can help you guys with? Any other questions? Any other feedback? I just want to say thank you for taking time out of your guys' busy day to set it and come together and talk about this important issue. Social media has really evolved even in the past 5 years, and so it's made our job, it's added an interesting layer to all of our jobs, and you know, anytime that we can come together and learn from one another, I think is really helpful, because sometimes in this realm you can kind of feel all alone, and so it's nice that we have other people across the nation and land grant institutions doing the same thing. So I just want to say thank you for your time. And if I can ever be a resource or a help to you, just know that I'm here for you. Reach out via email or via phone call. I'm happy to help anytime. So you're so welcome. And I hope to see some of you guys at the ACE conference this summer in San Antonio.
Thank you very much, Lindsay.
You're welcome. Okay, and just like that, we're done. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing the little screen.
Yeah, I think Heather might be ending the meeting, so I will
Okay.
let her take care of all of that. And thank you very much for doing this today.
Yeah, no problem. I'm glad we could finally get it on the books.
Yeah.
Okay, bye guys. Thank you.
See you soon.